Try to ask for the image, but if the image...
Ladies and gentlemen, this is Gail Morgan welcoming you to the Libertarian Counterpoint's Knuckleheads of Liberty podcast. You've heard their point, now listen to the counterpoint.
Welcome to the Knuckleheads of Liberty podcast. We're coming at you on September 22nd, 2021, about 8 endless months of the Biden administration. It's just a clinic on how not to run a country. But before we get to any of the topics, let me introduce you to our panel. In our upper left-hand corner today, we have our invisible hand, James Just. He is usually running things behind the scene, but because Tim Everett, our Screaming Evil Freedom, is not able to be here today, then James is joining us to help out. Tim, I just wanted to let you know, get well out there. And in our upper right-hand corner, we have Leon the Word Brathwaite, Last Word in Liberty. He is a retired engineer in the state of California. My name's Jason McPhee, and I'll be your host today. So let's jump into it. There's plenty to talk about in these crazy political times. Just one thing after another. Seems like there's endless stories of hypocrisy. And that's exactly what we wanted to talk about in our first story. San Francisco Mayor London Breed, when she parties, she doesn't like to wear a mask at all, even though she's kind of an authoritarian on making people wear a mask. And let's see if we can get that image, James. I think it's come up. Yeah. So in this particular image, we see this is San Francisco Mayor London Breed. And she was recently at a party in a club in San Francisco. And here she is in the background here, dancing it up without a mask on, after just several days before having pushed a new mandate that everybody had to wear a mask in the city, along with other COVID requirements. And it was kind of funny because what she said was that this was her excuse, apparently, for violating her own orders. She said, my drink was sitting on the table. I got up and started dancing because I was feeling the spirit. And I wasn't thinking about a mask. I was thinking about having a good time. And she went on to say, we don't need the fun police to come in and micromanage and tell us what we should or shouldn't be doing. Hello, you are the fun police. I don't know what to say. I mean, these are the people that we are electing in these places. And I just wanted to note, too, that this Mayor, London Breed, this isn't the first scandal she's been in. Not long after Mayor Gavin Newsom, Governor Gavin Newsom had his, yes. I wish we could demote him to mayor. Unfortunately, that didn't work out too well in the recall. But as far as Governor Gavin Newsom, one of his big scandals was the French Laundry debacle, where he was, telling everybody they needed to mask up, be shut down, and all that. And he's out here at this super fancy restaurant with lobbyists, having, running up a 5-figure bar tab, apparently, and pictures of them with no masks on, and over the party size that they're supposed to have. And just a few days later, London Breed was doing the same thing at the French Laundry. So, this is, I guess par for the course for her. You guys have any thoughts on, I guess, these hopeless authoritarians and their inability to follow their own rules?
It just amazes me that these people who have so little concern about our freedom and our liberties, they can make rules for us, but they don't have to stand by their own rules, and they don't have to live by the rules that they have created for us. Because they are so nice and wonderful, they are better than us. They have some special protection from COVID, obviously, because they receive no accountability for it. London Breed is still the mayor of San Francisco, still giving out all her authoritarian rules for the rest of us that she apparently doesn't have to live by. Gavin Newsom survived the recall, and he have his own scandals related with the COVID and all these mandates that the state have passed. But yet, no accountability. They still survive because they could make rules for us, but they don't have to live by them because they are better than us. These are the elites that are running our government and running our state and running our cities, that they are better than us, and we must bow down to them as they take away our freedom and our liberties.
Yeah, we back Leon up here. He's completely right. But I think I'm looking over this. I'm thinking, Jason, you've made a whole show out of knucklehead noise patrols. Everything on our list here is a bunch of knuckleheaded rulers sitting here doing exactly what they're telling us we shouldn't be doing, and we don't need the fun police. Well, I don't need the freaking fun police either, but I can't go to the bar without showing some stupid vaccine passport,
Right.
or being vaccinated or whatever goofy rules they want to follow. Who the hell knows, depending upon which side of the street you're on. You know, if you happen to cross city lines, it's insane. But yet, again, I know I've said this before. I think I said it last week. You know, some animals are equal. Some animals are more equal than other. And it's just another, again, a perfect example of display. And, you know, yeah, I get the bed. You guys go sleep in the hay. We're going to go sleep in the house in the bed.
It's amazing how Orwell pinned this stuff down, and you can just see it as, you know, in describing the Russian Revolution in Animal Farm, he pretty much described every central planner who imagines that they're going to I guess call the shots for all of us, you know, for our own good. And somehow it always works out for them. And, you know, we saw this too with Lori Lightfoot in Chicago, and you know, it's funny. She didn't say she had the spirit when she went out to get a haircut in violation of her own orders. She just said, "Hey, I got to look good." I mean, you know, I hate to break it to her, but I mean, I could have, you know, loaned her my hedge trimmer, and she could have probably done about as good a job with that.
She can probably do just as good.
Yeah.
Hey, I personally like people with natural hairstyles. Let it grow. What the heck?
Nancy had to go get this person to open up their hair salon so she could get her hair all nicely blown out and that kind of stuff. And these people are just a bunch of hypocrites, you know. And they're the worst kind of hypocrites, because in the process of their hypocrisy, they're taking away our freedoms. I mean, this is unbelievable.
Yeah. Well, and that's the crazy thing. I mean, as much as we can sit here and laugh at this, and we almost have to laugh because, you know, otherwise we'd practically be crying. But I mean, the problem is these people, it's not funny when they are literally arresting other people for violations of their rules. And then they turn around and they just say, "Hey, it's no big deal. I know what I'm doing. I don't need no fun police," right?
Exactly.
But, you know, apparently they think we need their fun, the fun police.
It's actually worse than just arresting people. Yeah. They're actually dehumanizing huge crowds of people, just huge groups of people. It's actually worse than arresting the people. They're dehumanizing a huge group of people, and while they're out engaging in the exact behavior they're dehumanizing. It's, you know, these are people who should be thrown from helicopters if we actually believe in that kind of thing.
But you know, you're right. You're right, James, about this dehumanization that is going on, because I think we spoke about this last week. They are now trying to make the unvaccinated, and those and a whole swath of people who are unvaccinated, are people who had the COVID and recovered. They're trying to make them into some kind of demons in our society because they don't want to take the vaccine, and they don't need to. They have better immunization than we do, and still they're trying to make them into these demons in our society. That Biden is now talking about. Oh, we now have a pandemic of the unvaccinated. When the unvaccinated, many of the unvaccinated have better immunization than we do, who took the vaccine, and this dehumanization is ongoing even as we speak, and this is horrible. And these people are making the rules and then go out and break it.
Well, speaking of breaking the rules, we had an interesting story that developed in the last few weeks, and it seems like Bob Woodward is at the heart of all these stories. Somehow he gets either, like in Trump's case, he literally got him to tell him that he was telling reporters a different story than he was going to tell Bob Woodward, which, you know, well, in this case, a more recent case, Mark Milley, somehow he found out that Mark Milley, while Trump was president, literally called up one of his counterparts in the Chinese military, and told him that, hey, don't worry about this. Let's see. It was on October 30th, 2020. This is while Trump was still president. He apparently had called a General Li Zuocheng. And what he said in the call was, General Lee, I want to assure you that the American government is stable and everything is going to be okay. We are not going to attack or conduct any kinetic operations against you. General Lee, you and I have known each other for 5 years. If we're going to attack, I'm going to call you ahead of time. It's not going to be a surprise. So, and apparently he did this without either telling Trump or any of the other people in the State Department, either before or after he made this call to the Chinese government. So, now in some cases, maybe it isn't bad strategy to call up somebody and maybe feed them false information, but that doesn't appear to be what was happening. It appears that he's better friends with some of them than he is with the people he's supposed to be working for over here. So just out and out an appearance of potential treason here. And it was funny too, because when Biden was asked about this, Biden says simply, I have great confidence in General Milley, even after hearing this. So I don't know. What do you guys think about this? Sounds completely upside down, man.
I cannot understand why General Milley is still holding on to his job. Why is this not treason? General Milley apparently have lost his mind and also have forgotten his place. Okay? In this country, in this republic, we have superiority of civilian control. That is the name of the game here. The military don't go off and do their own thing. In 1970, I was only 14 years old. Actually, I was not even 14 years old as yet. I was in a country where the military was trying to take over. Well, thank God, a part of the other part of the military, the Coast Guard, stayed loyal to the government and blew up a strategic bridge that forestalled the takeover of the government through a military coup. This was one of the most horrible experiences of my life. Okay, the schools were shut down. We were home for like 6 weeks and all kind of stuff. There was a curfew in and out and all sorts of things. You wouldn't believe what it was like. I couldn't imagine that something like this would be even contemplated here in the United States. This man is calling one of our adversaries, our number one adversary, and telling him that if we are going to attack, you're going to call them and tell them. Why is this not treason? Why is this man holding on to his job? I mean, I know some of these guys hate Donald Trump. They do. That's fine. Hate him if you wish. But you are an American soldier. You are part of the American military. You are supposed to be protecting our sovereignty, and you're calling a foreign power and telling them if we're going to attack, you will call them and tell them we're going to do so. Why is this not treason? I don't understand this. Why is this man still in his job?
Well, I've got actually a deeper question. What delusion is he living under that he thought we were going to attack China?
Good point.
There was never any thought of that Trump was going to attack China except in some wild left-wing delusion. So where is this coming from?
Well, apparently Milley's been watching too much CNN, I guess.
Obviously.
It was too much Rachel Maddow, right? I guess. I don't understand. Leon is completely 100% right, but I'm going, what the hell delusion is he living under that he thought there was ever a chance of us attacking China in the freaking first place?
Right, exactly. And the thing is, too, that Woodward also reported that Milley had another meeting with some of the senior military officers, and they essentially, this probably was not stated, but they essentially had to pledge loyalty to him rather than to our commander-in-chief, who at the time was Donald Trump. This is some bizarre stuff going on here. This is not only bizarre, but scary stuff going on here. Okay.
Yeah, this is closer to a real insurrection than that nonsense that went on January 6th, that stupid mob of morons. This is far closer.
God help us. This is scary stuff.
Yeah, and I can't say, I guess, any All right. I guess one of the things that really worries me about this is, we seem to be in a lot of danger of losing our liberties in these times. I mean, at first it's in the name of safety with COVID. Generals are essentially plotting against their elected leaders. This is scary times. I mean, a lot of times, if you had said this stuff 4 or 5 years ago, I think people would assume that you're just sort of a conspiracy nut or something else. But we're really living through this stuff now, where and we're we may be kind of on the edge of something happening here, and I mean something is happening with respect to COVID. I mean, we are losing a lot of liberties. So,
but a few years ago, I learned about this thing called the deep state. Okay, and actually the first person who brought this to my attention was our friend Jason Brand, but the deep state. And I used to always tell Brian, this is conspiratorial and nonsense. Okay. I really didn't believe in this deep state stuff. But when I see things like Milley doing this sort of things, I hear that the head of the CIA was briefed on some of this stuff before they even spoke to Trump, or before Trump was even aware that such a thing happened. I mean, you have to wonder. Look at some of the stuff that went on with the FBI prior to the election and after the election. You have to wonder if there isn't really a deep state in existence who is trying to steer our government in directions that we, the people, did not choose. So this is some scary stuff here. You're right. We probably at the edge here, and we got to be careful that we don't tumble over.
Yeah. What's funny, James had brought up the September 6th issue as well as a comparison of the treason. And recently George Bush spoke on that. And, I guess I have a slightly different take than former President George Bush, because I think he kind of revealed that he's not really an ally of liberty. He was talking about the September 6th rioters, and certainly there's a variety of opinions about these people. But certainly from the left, it's sort of lock them up and throw away the key forever. Sounds like that's the view. But here's what President Bush had to say about them. And he said, there is little cultural overlap between violent extremists abroad and violent extremists at home. But in their disdain for pluralism, in their disregard for human life, in their determination to defile national symbols, they are children of the same foul spirit. And it is our continuing duty to confront them. And in there, he was essentially comparing the September 6th rioters to Al-Qaeda, is what he was doing in that particular talk. And I just can't even imagine. I mean, here, despite whatever you may think about how tied in some of these protesters were to Trump in the election, a lot of these people are people who literally had a lot of their constitutional rights violated over the prior year. They had been locked down, lost jobs, lost businesses. Some of them had their property taken from them with these eviction moratoriums. So, I mean, there was all kinds of, and not to mention people like these dictators like London Breed, literally telling people what they can and can't do in a city. Essentially, the fun police really scrutinizing us with a microscope here. And this is after a year of that. And so the idea that some of these people would be upset, and then the fact that none of them showed up with guns, and none of them actually did the violence necessary to kill anybody. If anything, the violence was more from the police, in the sense that an unarmed woman who was a protester was killed, and that was actually bad. Yes. So I don't know. I mean, I just you think about these guys like Milley and others who are just talking about these guys like these are people we need to throw away the key. They're a terrorist threat, and my gosh, the founding fathers essentially started a revolution over a tea tax. At least is how the history books portray it. The Boston Tea Party, and the idea that people would be upset of having all these liberties taken away, and they didn't even raise a gun. They simply showed up at where some of these decisions are being made and voiced their opinion in an unruly way. So, anyways, what do you guys have to think about this? Because this is, to me, is really upside down, and especially a President Bush who,
You know, Bush, the one you're speaking about, which was the second Bush. I was a bit surprised at his statement because he was president when 9/11 occurred, and I thought he did an admirable job to get us through those times. But when I hear a statement like this out of the mouth of President Bush, it really shocks and surprises and disappoints me because I think he should know better. It is true what happened on January 6th was bad. It's a stain on our society. It is true. But could you in any way compare that to what happened on 9/11 20 years ago? Could you possibly do that in the same breath? Try to say that the 3,000 people who were murdered that day and all the destruction that occurred is somehow equivalent to a bunch of folks who rioted and they destroyed some property, I agree, and all that. And those two things are comparable? Come on, man. This is ridiculous. This is beyond ridiculous. Jason, can we still hear you?
I'm still here, even though my image is. My computer just is rioting against me.
That's true. Yes. Yeah. It's committing its own 9/11 against you, Jason.
Yes. Insurrection against me.
My
computer.
Well, and I want to point out that we had just finished 9 months of the concept where violence is the voice of the unheard, or riots are the voice of the unheard.
Yes.
Right? That we were just been told that all summer long that riots are the voice of the unheard. And then so we had a bunch of people who felt unheard. We're surprised that they went and rioted. The only difference is that they riot at the state capitol instead of, at the federal capitol instead of your state capitol. No one cared when they rioted out here in front of the state capitol.
Right.
No one cared.
Yes.
No one cared when they rioted down our streets. No one cared when they were rioting in front of the grocery store down the street from my house. No one cared. But yet, when it's the rioting at the Capitol by a few hundred morons, it's all of a sudden a big deal. It's just, it's again, we talk about hypocrisy, and it's just staring us in the face again.
But James, you raised a really important point there. Is how these things are being portrayed in our media is part of the big problem, because when we have the rioting on during the summer, this was just Black Lives Matter standing up for the rights of the individuals and blah blah blah, and trying to the voice of the unheard, as you put it, and that kind of stuff and things like that. But we had a situation on January 6th, and all of a sudden there's those right-wing extremists, these crazy people, they're trying to destroy our symbols of democracy and on and on and on. And they make this thing, it was a bad stuff. I would agree it was bad. I agree there was some criminal behavior. But they make this thing into this big thing, it was big as 9/11. Now that's what they're saying. But this is ridiculous. It's how the media is portraying these things is what leads us with these images and these ridiculous statements by politicians, some of whom at one time I supported. George Bush was a man I twice voted for, as a matter of fact. So I'm very disappointed he ain't making a statement like this. But it's how the media is portraying these things is what leaves us in this quandary of misstatements and misunderstanding of what really happened.
Well, and more to the point, too, what did it lead to, that whole January 6th riot? The response to it was literally an army holding down the streets of Washington, D.C. Literally thousands of soldiers marching on our streets, which is absolutely... It seems like it's almost what some of those people were afraid of who were protesting on January 6th.
Exactly.
So, gosh, I tell you, it's pretty disappointing. But let me jump now to a different story where it's time for our Knucklehead Noise Patrol. And so for that story, I want to talk about our late night comedians. And you talk about how these stories portray themselves in the media and this level of, I guess, vitriol and just the idea that we're able to absolutely condemn people who have different views. Well, Jimmy Kimmel recently was doing that on his platform. I can't remember which show is his. I watched it so seldom. But anyways, he was talking about COVID and Fauci and hospital overcrowding. And what he said was regarding Fauci's latest COVID, I guess, decrees. He said, Dr. Fauci said, if hospitals get any more crowded, they're going to have to make some very tough choices about who gets an ICU bed. That choice doesn't seem so tough to me. Vaccinated person having a heart attack? Yes, come on right in. We'll take care of you. Unvaccinated guy who gobbled horse goo? Rest in peace, Wheezy. So, they're literally, saying that if you don't go along with the edicts that they're making on some of these health things, that now suddenly you don't have the right to any kind of health care, I guess.
Yes.
And it's funny, this is coming directly from the people who believe that everybody should have universal health care and that we shouldn't be able to make judgments about people. So I don't know. Well, what do you guys think about it?
But you see, this thing gets back to the point I was trying to make earlier, where they're trying to demonize and dehumanize the unvaccinated. Okay? Oh, you're unvaccinated. Well, then you can die. It's okay. You can die. Okay? Well, my son is unvaccinated. Okay? He recovered from the COVID, and he's unvaccinated. So what are they trying to tell me? My son could die. It's no big deal. If he gets ill and he ends up in a hospital and they don't have a bed or whatever the issue is, he can die. It's no problem. It's no problem for them. This is the kind of madness. This is the kind of madness that is being perpetuated in the media these days. These people are sick. I don't know why anybody is listening to Fauci, as a matter of fact. That man is a jackass. Or I might have to get beep on that one.
We don't have to bleep it this time.
Yeah, okay. Why is anybody listening to that man after he have lied to us so many times? This is unbelievable. Sorry, James, go ahead.
No, it's Leon, you're completely right, but it's actually worse than that. I mean, it's not just a dehumanization, but we can actually talk about why don't we have enough ICU beds? Right? There's a reason. But when is it going to stop? If it's vaccines today, what, too many cheeseburgers tomorrow?
Oh, yes.
Yes. Hey, you're not vegan, so you don't get the health care we say you should get.
You're right.
Right? Where does it stop? Once they've decided that if you don't do this, you don't get that, where does it end?
Indeed.
It doesn't end. That's the actual scary part, because these people have already stated they don't care about your freedoms. They've stated it clearly.
Indeed.
The biggest crime in all this too is that these late night comedians doing this have made comedy not funny. I mean, they've literally killed the humor in late night at this point. And I mean, this is what they leave you with at the end of the day. This kind of cancer that they're putting in people's heads. It's just terrible. And it's funny too. Knucklehead Noise Patrol is supposed to be funny at the end, but unfortunately, I decided to talk about Jimmy Kimmel and just kill the vibe.
Well, put it this way, Jason. Kimmel is supposed to be funny. He's just not, which I guess is ironic. So it's funny.
Yes.
It's the left pretzel logic. It's the same kind of pretzel logic that they're using to make decisions these days. So why not?
It is funny that he's not funny.
Yeah. Maybe there's some kind of an equity reason why he's on, why he gets a spot on late night. I don't know, because it can't be the merit of humor.
Because he looks good and he's got straight teeth. That's why he's funny. That's why he's on late night.
You're so charitable, Jay.
Indeed.
Well, I think that's about all the time we have for this one. But thanks so much for joining us. Until the next one, stay free.
Indeed.